Of course, Adnan, thank you. Your Excellencies, dear members and friends of ABSL Bosnia and Herzegovina, it is a true pleasure to welcome you this morning on the very first ABSL Bosnia and Herzegovina Business Service Leaders Talk that we are going to hold. Just to inform you, these kind of events ABSL is planning to do quarterly, and we're quite proud and excited in the same way to hold the first one this morning. I hope that all of you can see my screen because we're about to start just now with the first ABSL Business Service Leaders Talk. So today's agenda, we'll introduce you to the housekeeping rules today of our meeting and of course make a brief introduction of the Association of Business Service Leaders of Bosnia and Herzegovina with remarkable overview of our annual country report and of course the panel discussion with our guest speakers and the plans of ABSL Bosnia and Herzegovina for 2021. Before we start, I would like to remind you to keep your cameras and microphones muted during the complete event, and when it comes to the Q&A session that we're going to have during the panel discussion, please raise questions in the Microsoft Teams chat room, addressing it personally to the speakers. So if you have a specific question, please write the name of the speaker you would like to get the answer from. It is my pleasure to hand the word over to ABSL Bosnia and Herzegovina President, Mr. Adnan Behman. Adnan, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Just one small note, we are recording this session, so we wanted to notify that in advance. Okay, so if you move to the next slide, thanks Adi. We will start with a short story, and the first story will be about a book. This was a book published in 2005 by New York Times journalist Tomislav Friedman. The book was instant bookseller. It had a catchy name, and it was recognizing one important trend that was happening in the industry that will change completely the way how we do the job as we know it. The short summary of the book was the following. There was a massive overinvestment in the fiber optic cables that were connecting the continents of the world. The companies recognized that, and they started to move the jobs from their current locations into remote offshore locations. There was many companies that were taking their IT, accounting, HR services from US and moving them to India, to China, to Philippines. Thomas, as a good journalist, recognized this, and he has announced this as a new industrial revolution, and he was quite right. This industrial revolution still continues today, 16 years after the book was published. Many would say that we have just scratched the surface of how much value can be created by these activities. And as a matter of fact, with all this COVID pandemic that hit the whole world, some of our recognized leaders recognize that this might just accelerate this trend. And I will tell you one secret that we use in our company, and that is the rule which says if you can do a job from home, that job can be done from anywhere else in the world. So you can imagine COVID has proven that many jobs can be done from home. Therefore, it is proving that many of the jobs that are currently done in high-cost locations that can be done in many other locations around the world. So if you move to the next slide, we have another story. And this story starts in Central Europe. Adi, if you move to the next slide, please. The story is about Central European countries. These countries have been joining European Union about the time when the book was published. What was happening is that these countries were moving to European Union. Many of the jobs from Western Europe start to flow to Central Europe. Among them, there was one country that was benefiting much more than the others, and that was Poland. Poland was large, so it can explain some of the trend. Poland also had a good education, and that could explain some of the reasons why many jobs moved here, but certainly that was not enough. There was one additional reason. An additional reason was there was one organization that was set up in Poland that made move of these jobs a bit easier for the companies, and it make it much easier for some companies that were already doing this job to do that job. That organization was named ABSL. And we believe that it was a big catalyst in Poland's success in creating many of these jobs and contributing to the economy. Today in this meeting, actually, I will not talk more about this because we do have one of the founders of this organization, Mr. Jacek Levernes, who will be part of our panel, and he will be able to tell us some of this success story firsthand. Now, a few years ago from today, we have recognized that in Bosnia, actually, we do have many of the companies doing the same thing. As a matter of fact, we have 4 times more of the business services jobs in Bosnia than Poland had when ABSL was created in Poland. So we have taken the license of ABSL in Poland and brought it to Bosnia, as well as Western Balkans. And we are on a mission to be the catalyst in the same way how ABSL was a catalyst in Poland. So Adi, if you move to the next slide, our vision is that business services will become one of the leading employment growth sectors in Bosnia by the mid of this decade. And the mission of ABSL Bosnia is to be catalyst, make this easier for companies that want to invest, as well as companies that do operate already in Bosnia. So with this, I'm passing the word now to Mr. Tarik Altunbabic, who is our Vice President, as well as the project manager of creation of our first ABSL report from Bosnia. Tarik, over to you.
Well, thank you, Adnan. Good morning to everybody. Good morning, Excellencies, and happy to see you all today at the ABSL event. I'm going to share a bit more details with you when it comes to what we have done and what is the true value of the ABSL. So actually, our story starts about 4 years ago with a proof of concept, which we have built in 2017, giving us basically the background or the foundations to acquire the ABSL license. ABSL is an organization. It exists in 6 countries today with nearly 800,000 employees worldwide, and it is an industry, global industry, with about $300 billion in revenues. So in these 4 years, we were quite active. So the first 1.5 it was about basically setting the foundations in Bosnia for an expansion of the ABSL, acquiring the license. Nonetheless, what was very crucial is to acquire the companies who would constitute the organizations and following the best practices from the Visegrad Group countries, Poland, and namely the Czech Republic. Over here, basically, you can see every milestone, so 6 major months. Nonetheless, in November 2020, so last year, we have completed the ABSL annual report. Most of you have seen it already. For those of you who haven't, we'll be very happy to share with you the links to it and instructions how to acquire the report itself. Moving to the next slide, the ABSL is constituted in 2 ways, in the twofold. So one is the management board comprised of the people who actually founded it. They come from Bosnia and Herzegovina, as well as other countries around Europe, mainly Poland, Belgium, Austria, and the Czech Republic. So we are there to ensure that ABSL is firmly standing in Bosnia, as well as that it has a potential and the way how to expand to European countries. The second part of the ABSL is our strategic board, which you can see yourselves. It is also comprised of 9 companies, reputable companies from Bosnia and Herzegovina, represented the business sector. Each company is covering different part of the outsourcing industry, ranging from the software development over to the BPO services, transactional shared services, consulting. So the big 4s are also here, as well as the companies who are in the customer care industry, covering the Adriatic region all over to Anatolia, with thousands and thousands of the employees within the group. Basically, what is quite important to say is that these 50 logos that you see over here, they are covering over 40% of the entire sector. So we have estimated that somewhat 40,000 employees or 40,000 people are already working in Bosnia in the business outsourcing industries. However, 40% of those employees are already part of our member groups, and I would like to welcome them, as well as give an opportunity to everybody else to join and share the ABSL vision and mission with all of us. Should we move to the actual report? So what we have done last year, so somewhere with the preparatory works for producing a report like this, we have taken the best practices from Poland and Romania, as well as the Czech Republic, given that we consider these countries being mentors of Bosnia and Herzegovina in having something like the ABSL report. And we have selected 5 topics to cover. So those 5 topics in the report that you will have an opportunity to see, if we go back, Adi, please, they are covering the general questions. So the general 5 questions that every investor is actually asking, when considering a new location to go to. The general information about Bosnia, about the macroeconomic indicators, about the currency, volatility, etc., which we have, and the data we have collected from different resources. They were already available, but really scattered all around the place. The second part is the general state of the sector, because the investors are keen to understand who is already present in Bosnia and Herzegovina, how the business really operates over there. About the location as well. So how developed the locations are, which we have also covered, and we've taken 5 primary, let's call them regions, when it comes to doing business, and some general information about the human capital as well as the COVID topic. So what we have uncovered is that the current potential of the outsourcing industry is somewhere 14,300 people. Last year there were 11 centers, and I'm proud to say that not too many of our centers have really lost any of the businesses or had to go into some unfavorable measures. However, the forecast up to 2022 is that the sector can grow by another 20 to 25%, having about 18,500 employees sitting in this sector. This is a very lucrative industry. It is a true uncovered economical gem of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which I hope that we will have an opportunity in the forthcoming reports to expand a bit more in details and have an opportunity through our great partner network as well as the DKP to present to foreign public and acquired businesses in Bosnia. So over here in this sector, in this slide, you can see those 5 primary locations I spoke about a little bit earlier. Going from Banja Luka, Zenica, Tuzla, Sarajevo, and Mostar, and every location has its advantages and disadvantages, but these things are part of the general maturity of each location, and we see a great progress really done year on year. In terms of the state of the sector in general, so the 2 key pillars are the customer services industry, both inbound and outbound, as well as the technical support, followed by the software development, which constitutes also about 35% of the sector, and the transactional shared services, which are yet to come. The report speaks a bit more in details about each and one of these industries, as well as what the companies are doing, what are the highlights, and how the business is going to grow. And I'm very happy to walk you through the details as we go forward. Thank you very much. And over to you, Adi.
Thank you very much, Tarek, and I'm very proud to give and hand over the word again to our President, Mr. Adnan Behmet, to welcome our speakers and guests today and start the panel discussion. So Adnan, please.
Okay, thanks, Tarek. Thanks, Adi. So, we are extremely proud to have some remarkable guests with us today. So we do have Dino Ibrahimović, who is our Managing Director for Infobip for MENA region. We do have Tomislav Glavaš coming from a remarkable M+ company, and Tomislav is the CEO, so the overall leader for the company, and he will be able to tell us more about successes and the outlook of a progress of this industry, as well as we do have Jacek Levernes, who is one of the founders of ABSL in Poland. Currently, he is the honorary president, and Jacek, in his daytime job, is a senior advisor in remarkable Boston Consulting Group. So Jacek is advising advisors who advise companies to invest in Central Europe. So certainly we do have top brass experts in the sector with us. So with this, I would suggest that we share our cameras and start a little bit of interaction between us. At the same time, we do have open chat. So please do ask any of your questions through the chat, noting who do you have a question for. So at the end of the panel, we will have 10 minutes to go through those questions and address them to our guests. So Jacek, Dino, Tomislav, welcome to our event. And I would like to start by asking a first question to Jacek. So Jacek, can you tell us about business services sector in general, its importance and contribution to Central and Eastern Europe, as well as Polish economy over past decade?
Thank you, and thank you for welcoming me to this, great event. I still remember the launch of ABSL in Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Sarajevo about more or less exactly 2 years ago, right? So, so it's very, very good to see that ABSL and the industry is growing in Western Balkans. And now over to industry. Obviously, I think, great intro with the world is flat and Mr. Friedman. I think, about 15 years, so I would say, 15 to 20 years ago, this industry was obviously non-existent in Eastern Europe and in Poland and wherever. Today, I think we had some very conservative figures there. That's certainly the 750,000. That's a conservative, Central Eastern Europe estimate. If we look at, shared services, BPO, ITO, R&D, and operations centers, I would actually put the number probably. And again, it depends how we define, the region, more probably around 1 million actually. If we also would include, Ukraine, Belarus, part of Russia, etc. So, so obviously it's, it's significant. In some of the leading markets, for example, certainly in Poland, but I think some of the other a little bit more mature markets, you have a pretty significant contribution today into economy. In Poland, for example, we estimate that about 3 to 3.5% of GDP is actually produced by, by our industry. And maybe it sounds little, but actually, when you look at typically, a distribution of and countries' GDP, that anything more than 0.5%, 1% is actually pretty significant. So this is great. I think we will see that value going actually up as we look into the future, because we see more and more value jobs as as we are obviously a nearshore region, which means we are not and probably will not be the low cost option that some of our brothers or competitors, if you want, like India is, and therefore our premise has been and will be even more so around value. How do you get the best output and the best effect versus cost? And I think to that means more quality jobs. Actually, a lot of the new projects that are coming, and I think this is worth to talk about. Okay, what happened with COVID? Obviously, I think very interesting what you said, Adnan, in terms of everything that can be done from home can be done from anywhere globally. Actually, great, great. We should coin a phrase on a phrase on that. Actually, that's a good thing to do. But basically, what was proven, I think, last year, and we wrote a little bit about it. If you guys maybe read Bloomberg Financial Times, is that we were really lucky in a sense, or lucky, and actually this shows our great value, is that the whole resilience factor, we were able to actually show that we could do work from home, and the whole infrastructure worked, everything was great. In about 3, 4, 5 days, 95% of people of these 350,000 jobs, for example, in Poland, we're working from home, no issue. And actually, we're even able to manage volumes and work from India, where they were having some more issues due to infrastructure, due to other, constraints that you could actually also see in Philippines and some other places. So I think, what's great now, as the whole global economy is regearing a little bit, looking for more savings, but also looking for resilience. We are more upfront in the line for these new investments that I think already seeing some of the new ones coming to Poland, for example, where we're seeing City will be growing probably by 1,000 jobs beyond the 5,000 they have. HSBC, Dyson is coming. There's a lot of new stuff. We were actually new investments. We were thinking that the new wave would actually start in the fall time, but we're seeing it already now. And my prediction would be that half of the things that are coming in are really more complex, sort of R&D, COE, lot of digital jobs where it's not like maybe before where we needed more students and more people with 2, 3, 4, 5 years of experience, but actually with 10, 15 years of experience. So my prediction, just sorry for this long-winded, talk here, but prediction for the future, I think, nearshore is standing, even higher up, I think, in terms of probability of growth. And that will also mean, of course, for Bosnia, Western Balkans, the whole region, I would expect a growth of somewhere in between 10 and 20%, if not more, year on year in 22, 23, and 24. So you guys are in a great place, and we should see some great growth, coming up. And I believe that those numbers will be growing, quickly to even 25, 30,000 jobs in the next few years for you. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Jacek. So Tomislav, I would have my next question to you. So can you tell us about M+Group? And you certainly have a very large presence in Western Balkans and Turkey too. So what is your story? How do you see business services sector developing in this part of the world?
Yeah, well, thank you, Adnan. Thank you for this question, and first of all, thank you for this kind invitation. It's a great pleasure to participate in this exciting panel and event, and have the opportunity to discuss, I think, quite relevant topics, not just for the experts from the service sector, but also for the broader audience. To give you a brief run through of milestones and success story that group accomplished in the last 4 to 5 years. Well, we started 5 to 6 years as a Zagreb-based company with around 200 employees and an average 2 to 3 million euros of sales. And we grew the company, which has now more than 8,000 employees and almost 100 million of sales. This was done through a focused and really diligent growth strategy, based mostly on the buy and build concept, where we realized that the current BPO market in this region is still hugely defragmented and still does not have a substantial economy of scale to gain competitive advantage to compete with the largest BPO players globally. Currently, M+Group is one of the fastest BPO company in Europe, with, as you said, geographical presence, not just here in the region, but also worldwide. So we are having geographical presence in 9 countries. So Bosnia and Herzegovina, Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Hungary, Romania, Turkey, UK, and US. And from those delivery centers, we serve more than 250 different clients from 59 different countries. And our employees are using 29 different languages. Our primary vision is to deliver really a seamless and tailor-made customer experience, enhanced with the latest technology from our R&D hubs. So we are having also R&D IT hubs, which are developing proprietary technology, such as robotic process solution or advanced data analytics. And all that was done with the local team from this region, which shows that we are really having competences and talent that we can compete with the toughest competition from all around the world. Going back and answering your other part of the question, looking at the future outlook, especially for this region, I think this latest trend, which Jacek also mentioned, of service nearshoring, so moving those services to culturally and operationally more closer countries to the countries of origin, could have substantial positive effect on this region, considering that we are having a really abundant talent pool with the great tech and language skills, and still somewhat competitive cost structure compared to some other markets, not just in the region, but also globally, and having this great historical and cultural ties with the Western European countries, which are looking to a more skillful and tech-driven workforce. I think this region is a really good position and during this process. This whole customer interaction industry is heading towards digitalization and automation, and we at M+ firmly believe that not just we, but also all the other ABSL members, which are mentioned here, could be leaders in this transition, and not just in this region, but impacting broader geographical area.
Okay, thank you, Tomislav. This is certainly remarkable progress. I had just one follow-up question. Can you give us a few examples of services that you provide from your service centers? Is it IT, call centers? What do you do?
So it's a mixture. So we are having really diversified portfolio of services and also clients and projects. So as all BPO, basic BPO companies, we started as a, for example, outbound call center, mostly focused on the sales. But currently, a vast majority of our services are more focused on more complex technical IT background services, which required, as we already mentioned, more skillful and tech-driven workforce. So we are really having a wide portfolio of services covering not just, as I said, this classical customer interaction part, but also implementing our software solutions from customer interaction, robotics solution, data analytics, and all other tools, which not just allows us to be more efficient and more competitive on the global market, but also bringing some value add to our clients, making them more digitalized and more up to current trends, and being able to compete with the really best players from the industry.
Okay, thank you very much. So my next question would be to you, Dino. So you have been a managing director of Infobit, which we do know is award-winning company. So can you tell us a little bit about what Infobit does? What is the presence across the Western Balkans, and what kind of services you serve from here?
Certainly. Thank you, Adnan, once again. It's a pleasure being part of this panel and part of this event. In short, Infobip is building a global cloud communications platform for enterprises to communicate with their end users. The full platform is built in-house, and ever since 2006, when the company was established back in Istria in a small town of one, basically the vision was to create a seamless interaction between businesses, and the platform is built on virtually every communications channel that you can think of, starting from the legacy ones such as SMS and voice communication, but also going to the new, let's say, internet-based ones such as email, all the way to the modern OTTs integration such as Viber, WhatsApp, Facebook, and the others. We count a very impressive portfolio of the clients such as Facebook, Google, Uber, major banks, major e-commerces, retails, etc. So basically, there's no industry where we haven't managed to penetrate. Since last year, since the investment from our partners, One Equity Partners, of 200 million, basically until this investment, we were bootstrapped. Infobip has been funding our growth by ourselves through the 68 offices, 70 now, I believe, throughout the world. And ever since this investment of $200 million, basically Infobip became the first confirmed unicorn in this region. The valuation of the company is officially over $1 billion. The major offices are in Balkans. Basically, the largest offices are in Zagreb and Bodnjan in Istria. The third largest is here in Sarajevo, and along with Tuzla, basically Bosnia holds a bit of a, let's say, special place where the core of our growth happens actually. So the business supporting functions such as legal, finance, HR, they're based here in Balkan region. The higher management are basically whole cohort is from the Balkans. The role of Bosnia itself, I'm extremely proud that we managed to basically establish Bosnia in this whole Infobip story as kind of a let's say hand-in-hand story that goes on in Croatia. As our offices in Croatia grew, so did our offices here in Bosnia. And with the opening of our Tuzla office, we started to, become even present in multiple cities across the Bosnia. What we do here is basically a large part of the software development is done here. Some of the solutions that we develop here in Bosnia are our voice capabilities, our future web, existing and future WebRTC technology. But also we have the business coverage of Middle East region, basically through Sarajevo being as a back office. Originally, majority of the business was done through Sarajevo office, but for the past 6-7 years, we've gradually been building our local presence there as well, with the offices in Emirates, in Egypt, 2 offices in Pakistan, an office in Jordan. We're preparing an office in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, preparing an office in Doha in Qatar, and certainly a few more down the line. Basically, Bosnia has this unique position that we're able to cover the whole time zone. Since time zones are crucial for a company which operates globally, we're able to cover the time zones of the whole EMEA region. And since we've traditionally been covering Middle East, we're slowly expanding our capabilities here in Bosnia to not just cover Middle East, but also along with our colleagues in Croatia to cover our back office duties when it comes to Europe, when it comes to Africa, when it comes to Russia, and basically all the way to Far East. Let's say it like that.
Okay. Thank you, Dino. That's a remarkable story. So one follow-up question on that. So can you tell us how many people roughly you do employ in Sarajevo and Tuzla office, and what is your growth? How that looks like?
Certainly. So basically, the offices here in Bosnia started back in 2010. Last year, we've celebrated our 10th anniversary of presence here in Bosnia. We started slow. The major expansion happened after year 2014 and 2015. This is when we started basically our global growth, but also our local growth. Currently, we're employing around 200 people across these 2 offices. We're preparing basically to build a campus here in Sarajevo. We purchased land. And hopefully this campus will be finished in 2023. And we're estimating that it will have seating spaces for 500 people, considering COVID and the way that workplace evolution will happen. This will cover basically 700 to 800 potential workspaces across Bosnia.
Okay. Thanks, Dino. Jacek, one next question to you. So you briefly touched it, but how do you see post-COVID world and nearshoring versus offshoring? Nearshoring being putting locations in Central and Eastern Europe, maybe South Europe, and offshoring being Philippines, India, China.
Yeah, I think very relevant question today, even on some of the projects that I work on or have worked on over the last few months from BCG or Boston Consulting Group, have been a lot around, how do we set up for our clients the right operating model, and that has various items to that. One thing is, of course, continue to drive more cost out, which always is an important pretext, but I think it's becoming more and more a change from pure look at efficiency So how to do the same thing, you know, cheaper and cheaper and more efficient to actually certainly more effectiveness and outcomes, which obviously, you know, puts, you know, value as a more important point. And now, even especially after, you know, and with what we're going through right now, de-risking. So how do you make sure that, you know, when you set up your you know, the whole operating model, right, where you have different people doing different work across different locations and pieces of process, and probably even in a hybrid model where you have, you know, the company or the client, and then you have BPO providers or ITO providers, like, you know, from my colleagues here. How do you make sure that not only that, you know, this process, like I said, is efficient, but that the handover points are better, that the outcome at the end means, you know, a more satisfied client that has something that's more seamless, where, you know, the client is happy, and then the value delivered actually is maximized. And then, you know, and then this additional thing that now is very much in everybody's mind is how do you do that without, you know, when you have these black swan events, for example, you know, if we can call that, but I guess we can call it a black swan event with Corona and COVID-19, or other things like, you know, I don't know, cyclones in Philippines, or you know, electricity shutdowns in India, or telecoms issues, or other, you know, other topics. And therefore, if we look at all of that, this is, I think, where Eastern Europe, nearshore, you know, the nearshore concept is much more easy. It was always a good point to sell, but it's much more important point as, you know, companies now relook, okay, you know, even if there is a, you know, stock market bubble globally, as we see it, everybody is aware that actually, you know, this is probably beyond some particular, you know, segments of the global economy, like, you know, in particular segments on digital, etc. Maybe logistics, because of, you know, the news premise. Everybody is actually seeing that, you know, looking for savings. So, you know, when they drive for this new operating model with more cost out, etc., we are much higher up, I think, with our value proposition versus, for example, you know, offshore, be that, you know, India or Philippines or other ones. And I think, you know, when I looked at, you know, the data you were just showing before here, and seems, you know, definitely IT and digital is, you know, a key competence, as well as customer service is a key competence of Bosnia. You need to definitely build on that and even create a little bit of more specialty. Why that is? Because probably it's not pure coincidence. I would imagine. For example, in Poland, you know, F&A is huge. It probably you know, IT is obviously huge and been growing more recently, but the core has always been F&A for different reasons, which both based on an educational system, you know, mentality of people, etc., etc. And I think it's similar here. So I think, you know, as you carve out your future, you know, in this industry, I think it's important to position these points that you see digital and customer service, and try to pitch that in various ways, be that, you know, if you are a shared service or a BPO provider, etc. So I think, you know, the future definitely is bright for the next, you know, couple of years. I believe we're going to see a little bit of a repeat. You know, when you had the last financial crisis, I'll tell you, this is interesting, you know, data from Poland. In 2008, 2009, it was a little bit similar like last year. Everybody was just like, whoa, what happened, you know, with the crisis? And the whole world was standing still, and every company was, well, because they needed to figure out, okay, are we going left? Are we going right? Are we going, you know, forward or backward? But then what we saw, you know, from 2009, 2012, were actually the doubling of the industry in terms of jobs in Poland in 3 years. You actually saw that doubling. I think we will see the same effect across the whole region the next 2-3 years, because I think everybody is a little bit, you know, clear now that the shock effect was, I think, the last 9-12 months. And we're already seeing, at least what I'm seeing, but I'm also hearing about new investments pretty sizable in Bulgaria and Romania, and certainly in Poland as well. We thought it would come this fall, but it's actually already starting now. So let's cross fingers and let's hope that maybe it will not be doubling because the base is already pretty big, but that we're going to see this, 10, 15, 20% growth year on year for the next, 2, 3, 4 years. And I think for now, the few proof points we have, it's certainly looking like this. And I'm talking concrete, investment projects, be that, from BCG or other, say, pipelines that I'm seeing.
Yeah, thanks, Jacek. Thanks. Fully agree with that. Yeah, so very relevant observations that is pretty much in line also how my company sees it. Okay, thanks. Hey, Tomislav, one question to you. So can you tell us about advantages and disadvantages of doing business in Bosnia in compared to all other markets where you operate? Tomislav, you're on mute for your info.
Sorry. The most popular sentence this year. Yeah, well, this is very relevant question, and one of the first countries where M+ expanded its operation was Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think back in 2017. There is so many acquisition and expansion, so I cannot recall, but I think it was 4 years ago, and from that on we grew from 0 to almost 700 employees right now, based in Bosnia. As Jacek said, there is several good elements of and advantages of Bosnian market. First of all, this is what we mentioned as a good infrastructure, secure environment, very close to those relevant markets in Western European. But going more into details, as we said before, really highly educated workforce. With these historical connections with the crucial European markets through migrations in history, resulted in many fluent foreign speakers. Also, the majority of this urban population and this demographic movement and IT awareness of those young people allows companies like ours to find really quality staff at any point of time. For service delivery to our global blue chip clients. Also, another vital element which we cannot oversee here is the cost competitiveness still of the market compared to some other countries in the region, and this low taxation rate which attracts more foreign investments. Still, there are many improvements area to do in following years to capture this greater value from potential growth in the service sector. From my opinion, I think government, it's not just a situation for Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's a situation with most countries here in the region, should create more transparent, efficient and inviting economic and administrative framework in order to attract those foreign investors. Also, looking from the macroeconomic aspect, despite the fact that the current currency FX rate is relatively stable, looking at the convertible mark is still substantially overvalued, especially comparing to some other countries in the region, and looking and comparing to the cost structure of economy, which makes our service export less profitable and less competitive on the global market. Which, yes, it could be offset with some other measures, but it will allow additional growth in this region. And finally, which I think is very crucial, important, is that organization and professional associations like this one, like ABSL, should really continue to promote the true leaders and reliable and trustworthy companies from this region, which will increase the credibility of the overall market and remove some taboos about this region as a Balkan. We know that there's a certain perception still in the Western European markets, and which may put us in potentially more appealing position of hypothetically new service hub for sophisticated companies in years to come. So this is my opinion, and I think we are on a good track, but there is still a lot of things to work and to be done in order to capture this substantial value which is coming in this new trend of nearshoring all those services.
Okay. Thank you, Tomislav.
Yeah.
Thanks. So we will have one more last question, but before I ask it to Dino, I would like to remind everybody that you can submit your questions to our panelists via chat in the Teams. So like, please feel free to add any questions, and please do note who do you address your question to. So Dino, one more. Can you tell us about benefits of doing business from Bosnia from your angle? How do you assess talent in this market, and how is this talent coping with a global company like yours?
Infobip kind of started from small scale, so we weren't, coming to Bosnia already looking for major talents, and this was definitely let's say facilitating basically circumstance for Infobip, where we were able to employ young, ambitious people who want to pursue their career and who are dedicated enough to push with Infobip to where we really wanted to be. However, the fact is that there is a lot of talent, and actually one of the reasons why we as Infobip are part of the ABSL is to try to keep this talent in Bosnia, regardless if they work for Infobip or for anyone else. Increasing competitiveness, increasing knowledge gained, increasing general satisfaction of living by keeping these young, talented individuals will benefit everyone, basically. So for us, the initial growth phase was basically looking for people who are dedicated, who are quick to learn, because Infobip was in a similar phase. As Tomislav and Jacek already mentioned, and I will echo majority of their points. Basically, there is also the cost aspect of the whole story, which allows us to stay ahead on the global level. Basically, Infobip is one of the top 3 companies in this industry, and we've managed to do it. Again, the competitors are publicly listed. We are bootstrapped, and we managed to do it by keeping our costs controlled as we grow and as we expand. And one more aspect, which I believe is a bit overlooked in global market for workforce, is the work here in Bosnia and in Balkans. What I've seen is that if you give someone a chance to grow on their job, if you give them good financial package, and if you give them solid work, they are extremely loyal and are not as let's say volatile to switch the companies as potentially in other markets. This was crucial for our growth because in the phase of big growth every year of expertise that your people acquire while working for you, and the knowledge that they manage to implement and drive throughout the company itself is much more valuable than bringing in external experts, which will take time to onboard, which will be more costly, and which will in the end take more time to adjust because they don't have the same background as the existing employees that basically we have. Specific also position of Bosnia, as Tomislav mentioned, we're in a unique position where we are kind of a bridge between traditionally called East and West, but realistically we're a cross between several cultures and languages, which are both benefits in business. Knowing a certain language is a huge boon when moving to any region. Of course, English is de facto business language everywhere, but it's going to be much easier if you know the language of the market that you're at. And finally, the culture aspect. Here in Bosnia, Sarajevo office was selected as kind of a back office, spearheading office for Middle East efforts, especially due to this culture. It was deemed that people here from Bosnia will have an easier time approaching Turkish markets, Middle Eastern markets, all the way to Pakistan and Bangladesh, just by virtue of understanding the culture that is there. So I think it's kind of a mix of all these aspects for us. Now at this point of growth, definitely we're looking for a more experienced profiles, but this is a story for another time, because people will be, more and more people are returning back to Bosnia now that they've found, the careers outside. They've lived their careers outside. They want to look for a job now here in Bosnia, and hoping that actually we will be able to utilize this knowledge and this talent that's coming back. And finally, of course, these of transfer of the knowledge due to specific industry that we operate in, due to the changes that constantly happen, the best people to transfer this knowledge are our internal employees. So we cannot really count on external let's say knowledge transfer. On the other hand, people who are the quickest to learn and who are the most flexible, again, are our own people.
Okay. Thanks, Dino. And certainly good point on attrition, as we do struggle, especially in IT industry. Attrition levels can reach up to 20% in some cases, and certainly that makes it very difficult to build new advanced services. So thanks a lot for that insight. Okay, so with this, we will move to the question and answer section. So Adi, what questions do we have for our panelists?
First of all, thanks to all of our panelists today for a great discussion. I can't stop smiling also because of our attendance list. Thank you very much for joining our 9 a.m. expert talk. I know it's quite a journey, so thank you again. We have a question from Daniel Nippart regarding the IT industry. It says, I have a question relating to the talent pipeline in the IT industry with too few IT graduates each year here in Bosnia, so circa 700. What are the panelists' inputs on the reforms required to the formal education system in the support of BPO, and what role should there be for non-formal education? For example, company designed and delivered training education to make up the shortfall in talent. So maybe Dino could start with an answer because it's IT industry related.
Adi, thank you, and as well, Daniel, thank you for the question. In Infobip, we basically believe that the partnership with the universities will be a large part of our future positioning. In Croatia, we have an excellent cooperation with both public and private universities, and we're especially focusing on the IT sector. This will allow us to, for Infobip, basically to scout ahead on the high quality people who are just finishing the college, give them the opportunities to learn about Infobip in time, and hopefully have them as part of our family. However, the problem is a bit more wider than what Infobip can influence by ourselves. There's certainly a need for additional education, but our experience is that these external educations really need to not turn into a fast food industry for IT people. There is no way that you can enable a software developer to be a full-fledged software developer in a year, starting from zero knowledge. There needs to be a bit more structured way, and there needs to be a more, let's say, gradual way of grading the seniority of IT people. So here, I think, these events like these are actually crucial to increase the awareness of regular people on the importance of the IT industry and actually on their future career path, because realistically IT is a profitable business here in Bosnia, and it does guarantee a solid living compared to all others. So I think here it's just a matter of raising the awareness, going from high schools, even earlier, all the way to where people decide what their future career is going to be. So it's definitely something that needs a multiple-pronged approach. We are doing our best, even here in Bosnia, to work with the universities, but also with the governments of cantons, so that we can hopefully influence through all basically organizations, so that we can influence their curriculum, and that we can prepare the future, let's say, pipeline of employees to be wider.
Thank you very much, Dino. Tomislav, we received a question via email from our members who are not able to attend the event. They are asking, what are the best examples and practices you can share with us regarding the function and role of M+ operating on so many markets, especially related to the Western Balkans and Turkey supporting your growth?
Well, it's a quite wide question, and I will try to be as much as precise as possible. Looking at how many countries and how many different companies and sectors we are currently serving within our service portfolio, it makes us more knowledgeable and more experienced in so many different industries, and giving us exposure to some areas which we couldn't probably reach staying just here as a regional player and tapping just here in this 2 to 3 or 4 countries right now. This enhanced our knowledge. Our employees gained a really substantial expertise in certain fields of service delivery, which makes them really competitive on the global market. We are constantly facing with the challenges that BPO leaders from all around the world trying to capture and get our employees and trying to headhunt them. So also what is important, we brought several let's say blue chip companies and showed them that this region here is able to tackle with the most complex projects which can occur in the BPO sphere, and opened a door to several other companies which were acting as a consortium with us, providing several other adjacent services and products from IT, tech suite, or from other business service industry and so on. So this exposure allowed us to grow even faster. It accelerated our internal knowledge, and it had really great influence to some other players here in the region, acting as a one unique, let's say, one-stop shop provider to global companies in the world.
Thank you very much, Tomislav. Another question came in for Mr. Jacek. What are the most important qualities of service center locations that investors are actually looking for from your perspective?
Well, I think, it goes a little bit to the previous questions. I think number one is, obviously the right talent at the right cost. So of course that means different things for different companies that are looking to set up their shared service BPO, IT, or R&D centers. But absolutely number one, I think it's talent, and the pool of talent at this particular specialty that they're looking for, be that for IT, and then for example it's one thing is if you're just looking at IT support people, but if you want to set up, I was actually just working on another very interesting case for an IT COE. Global one, and there was only 50 people, which is small, I would say, but 4 of those roles were actually reporting directly to the global CIO. So that very different considerations, obviously. on a shared service IT support center, maybe with 400 or 500 people, versus, you know, something like this where you really have, you know, I don't know, global head of security, etc., etc. So talent number 1. 2, I would say probably infrastructure, and that means, you know, okay, how is it? Is it to fly there, drive there? How is the office space, etc., etc. So I think infrastructure is number 2, and probably number 3 is also, you know, the business environment. That means, you know, will the city support it, either financially or non-financially, the region and the country, where sometimes, you know, that there is financial support, sometimes there's just, you know, investment support or post-investment care. That's very important. So I would say that's probably the, you know, 3 overarching. But of course, when you look at, you know, typically a scoring list, when you know, we advise, for example, for, you know, location strategy and how to set up something like this, typically that list actually has, you know, 10, 15 different, you know, different drivers. We'll get into much more detail.
Thank you very much. We are done with our Q&A session. I would like now to invite our Vice President, Mr. Benjamin Kadic, to introduce us actually to the plans and ideas ABSL Bosnia and Herzegovina will implement and try to do our best in 2021. Benjamin, good morning.
Good morning to everyone. It was quite a pleasure and honor to listen to our distinguished speakers and business matter expert coming from the industry. As many other mature associations, we are trying to ensure added value to our country, industry, businesses, but also general public, which will greatly benefit from the growth of the BPO industry. As we noticed in the Poland case, ABSL Bosnia and Herzegovina aim to lead business service sector expansions and transformation into an integral part of the B&H economic growth. Though we are a young association, our objectives are still considered around 3 key goals: sustainability and growth, industry recognition, and added value. Our initial expectation is to secure the sustainability, ensure long-term development and dynamic growth of the business service sector, and to increase the investment attractiveness of B&H and leading representatives for outsourcing and offshoring sector. Main sustainability indicators are translated through key indicators that we are focusing and tracking on the market: membership and partnership participation, annual report and conference, and development projects. In order to ensure the growth, we are trying to increase number of members associated to ABSL, number of companies and employees gathered in the industry, and regional expansions. ABSL is considered as a unique organization, united by the vision of building a competitive business service industry. In order to showcase the industry growth potential, our main initiatives are consisted from research of the market while providing business intelligence, market data, key statistics, and sector insight. Just as Jacek mentioned earlier, those are the information that clients, investors, or local providers are seeking through their businesses. Strong media presence is heavily expected and required to introduce the employment opportunities on the market, but also to inform the wide audience and public that this industry is thriving and growing in this moment. And supporting business service community through advocacy cooperations with authorities, university, and other stakeholders, which is a main measure that our strategic and management board is taking care. Last but not less important initiative is our joint passion to ensure added value to our members while sharing the industry insights with the ABSL report and other publications, knowledge sharing through ABSL club activities and leader talks such as this one, while also providing brand visibility for all our members and unique networking opportunities through ABSL network of companies and investors in Poland, Czech Republic, Romania, Latvia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. I would like to conclude my part with a note that we are just starting, but the truth is that many of our members existed and grew significantly in the past decade. In our recent history, there was not many similar growth opportunities for business services sector as we are facing in the midst of the COVID effect, where need for the remote resources and services is unlimited and borderless. In behalf of ABSL, I would like to invite to join us in supporting and the dynamic growth of the business services sector and the increase of investment attractiveness in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you for the time and I appreciate your. Adi, back to you.
Thank you very much. I would like again to use the opportunity to first of all thank to our speakers for having the time to join us today and actually expand our knowledge as we promised to all our attendees today, and of course to thank all of you who decided to join our event, especially the excellencies, representatives of Bosnian and Herzegovian government, international organizations as such, and of course last but not the least, I would like to thank our team who initiate this event. So Ms. Nadina Gradaščić, Vice President, Tarek Altunbabić, of course, also Vice President Benjamin Kadić, Adis Mustabaš, Executive Director, and of course our President, Mr. Adnan Behman. And to remind you that such events will take place quarterly, but of course, for those ones interested in human resources, our next event is coming up on the 1st of April. Thank you again very much. To the next opportunity.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.